The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Imperial Hotel shimmered, their light dancing across the polished floor where my younger brother, Julian, was about to have his first dance. The air buzzed with the clinking of glasses and the murmur of well-wishers, but I felt strangely detached, an island in a sea of celebration. My name is Eleanor Vance, and while my family toasted Julian's success as a rising star at Vance and Thorne, our family's architecture firm, I nursed my sparkling water, a quiet ache in my chest. Unlike Julian, whose life seemed perfectly scripted in the family blueprint, I'd always veered off course. 6 years ago, I'd traded blueprints for bytes, leaving Vance and Thorne to launch ArchTech, a startup that developed cutting-edge design software. A glorified video game. My father, Harrison, had scoffed, his words echoing in my memory. My mother, Evelyn, ever the diplomat, had offered a thin smile and a tighter hug, her eyes conveying a disappointment she couldn't quite mask. Tonight, the familiar sting of their disapproval was sharpened by the contrast of Julian's triumph. He twirled his bride, Clara, a vision in ivory lace, his laughter ringing out with the confidence that came so easily to him. My parents beamed, their faces radiating pride, their gazes lingering on their golden boy. I tried to smile, to share in their joy, but a knot of frustration tightened in my throat. "You look lovely, Eleanor," my Aunt Beatrice said, her voice a warm counterpoint to the evening's chill. She was my mother's sister, an artist who'd always understood my unconventional path. "Don't let them dim your sparkle." "Thanks, Aunt B," I replied, managing a genuine smile. "It's just a lot." "I know, dear. But you have your own light, Eleanor. Don't ever forget that." My phone vibrated discreetly in my clutch. An email from Xavier Moreau, CEO of Innov Design, a tech giant poised to revolutionize the architecture world, sat unread. The subject line, "Confidential, CEO appointment." My heart skipped a beat. After years of relentless work, of pouring my soul into ArchTech, this was it. Innov Design was acquiring my company for a staggering $3 billion, and I was to be their new CEO. The irony was almost cruel. Tomorrow, I would be at the helm of a company that was about to shake the very foundations of Vance and Thorne, a company my family believed was the only path to true success. As the evening wore on, the toasts began. Each one was a carefully crafted tribute to Julian, a subtle reminder of his adherence to the family legacy. To Julian, my father's voice boomed, who understands that real architecture isn't about fleeting trends or fancy software. It's about bricks and mortar, about building something that lasts. A ripple of applause filled the room. I took a small sip of my sparkling water, the bubbles stinging my nose. My fingers tightened around my phone, the unread email a weighty secret. "And to my wonderful son," my mother added, her voice thick with emotion, who, unlike some, knew where his talents truly belonged. Her eyes flickered in my direction, a fleeting but unmistakable barb. I felt a flush creep up my neck. I wanted to defend myself, to shout, "You have no idea what I've built. You have no idea what I'm about to become." But I swallowed the words, forcing a polite smile. The weight of their expectations, their unwavering belief in Julian's path as the only path, had always been a heavy burden. It had fueled my ambition, yes, but it had also carved a deep ache of loneliness within me. Only Aunt B had ever truly seen me, truly believed in my vision. Later, as the band played a lively tune, my father cornered me near the dessert table. "Your mother tells me you wanted to discuss business, Eleanor," he said, his tone clipped. "Yes, Dad." I began. "I have some exciting news." "If this is about coming back to Vance and Thorne," he interrupted, "the answer is no. You made your choice when you left. Julian is more than capable of taking the reins." "This isn't about coming back." I tried again, but he was already moving on, eager to join another group of well-wishers. "Julian just landed the Thompson Tower project," he announced to them, his voice booming with pride. $50 million. The biggest deal in the firm's history. "That's wonderful, Dad," I said, my voice tight. "But if you'd just let me..." What have you achieved lately, Eleanor? He asked, his eyes dismissive. Still playing with your computer games? The injustice of it stung. I had poured my heart and soul into Archtech, sacrificing sleep, relationships, everything, to build something extraordinary. And he reduced it to computer games. You'll find out soon enough, Dad, I said, my voice low. He shook his head, that familiar look of disappointment clouding his features. That's what I thought. All potential, no results. As I watched him walk away, I felt a surge of defiance. Tonight, I would let their words slide off me like water off a duck's back. Because tomorrow, everything would change. Even Julian, usually so affable, couldn't resist a dig. As I gathered my things to leave, he approached me, Clara clinging to his arm. Leaving so soon, Eleanor? He asked, his tone laced with a hint of condescension. Though, you might want to consider a more appropriate ensemble next time. This isn't one of your tech conventions. I glanced down at my tailored silk dress, a piece that had cost more than Julian's entire honeymoon wardrobe. Congratulations, Julian, I said, my voice steady. I'm sure you'll do great things at Vance and Thorne. Of course I will, he smirked. Architecture is about relationships, about trust, not about algorithms and virtual reality nonsense. If only he knew. If only they all knew that the nonsense I was building was about to revolutionize their entire world. As I waited for my car, I overheard my mother talking to her friends. Such a shame about Eleanor, she sighed. So much potential, wasted on that. I bit back a retort, sliding into my car, the cool leather a welcome relief. I finally opened the email from Xavier Moreau, my fingers trembling slightly. The press release was attached. Innov Design announces Eleanor Vance as new CEO. Tech visionary to lead $3 billion acquisition. Tomorrow, the world would know. Tomorrow, my family would know. And tomorrow, I would finally step out of their shadows and into my own light. But this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving them wrong, though that was a tempting side effect. It was about vindication, about showing them that success could be defined on my own terms, that innovation was as vital as tradition. Driving through the city, the glittering skyline a testament to human ingenuity, I thought about the years of struggle, the countless rejections, the moments when doubt had gnawed at my resolve. My family's voices echoed in my head, their words like stones I'd carried for too long. It's a phase, Eleanor. You'll come back to us eventually. You're throwing your life away. But I hadn't. I had built something extraordinary. And tomorrow they would have to see it. My phone buzzed. A text from Aunt B. Thinking of you, sweetheart. They were particularly harsh tonight. I smiled. A genuine smile this time. Never better, Aunt B. Watch the news tomorrow. Can't wait, she replied, adding a string of heart emojis. Back in my penthouse apartment, the city lights spread out before me like a glittering tapestry. I poured myself a glass of wine, the rich red liquid a stark contrast to the sparkling water of the reception. I raised my glass to my reflection. To defying expectations, I whispered. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. But tonight, I allowed myself a moment of quiet triumph. The next morning, I woke before dawn, a surge of adrenaline coursing through me. I dressed in my power suit, a deep blue Armani that made me feel like I could conquer the world. At 8:59 a.m., I opened the family group chat, silent for months. Turn on CNBC, I typed. You might find this interesting. Then, I walked into my new office, the CEO's office, on the top floor of Innov Design headquarters and waited for the earthquake. It didn't take long. My phone erupted with notifications as the news spread like wildfire. Innov Design appoints Eleanor Vance as CEO. Tech prodigy takes helm of $3 billion giant. Vance acquisition shakes up architecture industry. The first call, predictably, was from Julian. What the hell, Eleanor? He sputtered, his voice cracking with disbelief. Innov Design? Are you trying to destroy Vance and Thorne? I leaned back in my leather chair, the panoramic view of the city spread out before me. Good morning to you too, Julian. Enjoying your honeymoon? Cut the crap, he snapped. Do you have any idea what you've done? Innov Design is our biggest competitor. They're trying to make firms like ours obsolete with their fancy tech. Actually, I replied calmly, I know exactly what I've done. And maybe, if you'd paid attention to my fancy tech over the years, you'd understand where the industry is headed. Dad's furious, he warned. He's calling an emergency board meeting right now. I checked my watch. He might want to wait until after the market opens. As if on cue, my other phone buzzed. Innov Design stock had jumped 15% on the announcement. Vance and Thorne shares, on the other hand, were already down 10% in pre-market trading. The second call was from my mother. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing the script: guilt, manipulation, and thinly veiled threats about family loyalty. Instead, I opened my laptop to draft a company-wide email to Innov Design's 10,000 employees. But before I could type a word, my assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Ms. Vance, your father is here. He doesn't have an appointment, but he insists on seeing you. I took a deep breath. Send him in, Maya. The door burst open, and Harrison Vance stormed into my office, his face a mask of fury. He stopped short, his eyes widening as he took in the sleek, modern space, the Innov Design logo glowing on the wall behind me. What is the meaning of this, Eleanor? He demanded, waving his phone, the news headlines blaring across the screen. Good morning, Dad. Please have a seat. I will not have a seat. Do you have any idea what you've done to our family name? To our firm? I met his gaze steadily. I've built something revolutionary, Dad. Something that's going to change the way the world builds. Isn't that what you always wanted for me? To make an impact. Not like this, he exploded. Not by joining the enemy. These tech companies are destroying everything we've built. They're replacing architects with algorithms. We're not replacing anything, Dad. We're evolving, I countered. Innov Design's AI can analyze building data in seconds, predict structural weaknesses before they occur, and design sustainable, energy-efficient buildings that human architects can only dream of. It's a tool to empower architects, not replace them. That's not architecture, he insisted, his voice trembling slightly. Architecture is about creativity, about vision, about the human touch. And it still will be, I said, my voice softening. But it can also be more efficient, more sustainable, more accessible. Did you know our software can generate design options 10x faster than traditional methods? It allows architects to focus on the creative, visionary aspects of their work, not the tedious calculations. He sank into one of the visitor chairs, the fight draining out of him. He looked older, defeated. Why didn't you tell us? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Would you have listened? At Julian's wedding? You were all too busy celebrating tradition to hear anything I had to say. A flicker of shame crossed his face, quickly replaced by defensiveness. We only wanted what was best for you, Eleanor. No, Dad, I said quietly. You wanted what was best for Vance and Thorne. There's a difference.
My phone buzzed again.
The market was officially open. Innov Design stock was soaring. Vance and Thorne's shares had plummeted further. Dad's phone rang. From his grim expression, I knew it was the board, demanding answers about the stock price. You need to fix this, he said, standing up, the anger returning to his voice. Come back to Vance and Thorne. We'll create a tech division for you. Whatever you want. I shook my head. That's not how this works, Dad. I'm not the daughter who needs your approval anymore. I'm the CEO of a $3 billion company that's changing the future of architecture. Then you leave me no choice, he said, his voice hard. We'll fight this. Vance and Thorne won't go down without a battle. As he reached the door, I called out, Dad. He turned. Check your email in an hour. There's something you'll want to see. After he left, I finally sent that company-wide email outlining my vision for Innov Design, my passion for innovation, and my commitment to creating a future where technology and human creativity worked hand in hand. Then, I opened another document, one I'd been preparing for months. At exactly 10 a.m., Innov Design issued another press release. Innov Design announces revolutionary partnership program for traditional architecture firms. The program would allow established firms to integrate InnovDesign's cutting-edge software into their existing operations, combining the best of both worlds, human expertise and technological innovation. It would be offered to select partners first, with Vance and Thorne given the first right of refusal. My phone buzzed.
"Aunt B this time."
"You brilliant girl," she exclaimed when I answered. "I just watched your father storm out of your office looking like he'd seen a ghost." Then I saw the partnership announcement. Masterful. I laughed. "I learned from the best, Aunt B. Thank you for believing in me all these years." "Oh, honey, you made it easy. Now, tell me, how long have you been planning this partnership program?" "Since before the acquisition. I knew traditional firms would need a bridge to the future. They can either adapt or get left behind. And the timing? Right after Julian's wedding." I smiled. Well, I might have waited until they'd all finished calling me a disappointment before showing them exactly what I've built. She chuckled. "Remind me never to underestimate you." "Oh, hold on. Your mother just walked in looking like she swallowed a lemon. I'd better go." Throughout the day, the messages and calls flooded in. Old colleagues congratulating me. Industry leaders wanting to discuss partnerships. Journalists requesting interviews. Julian called twice more, his tone shifting from anger to grudging curiosity about the partnership program. My mother left 3 voicemails, each one progressively less hostile. By late afternoon, the Vance and Thorne board had called an emergency session to discuss InnovDesign's partnership offer. I knew they'd accept. They had to. The market had spoken. Vance and Thorne stock continued to plummet, while InnovDesign soared. As the sun began to set, painting the city in hues of gold and crimson, my assistant appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Vance, your father is here again." I nodded, closing my laptop. "Send him in, Maya." He entered more quietly this time, the fire in his eyes banked, replaced by a weariness I'd never seen before. He looked less like an unyielding titan of industry and more like a father grappling with a reality he didn't understand. "The board wants to accept the partnership," he said without preamble. "I thought they might." "Did you plan all of this, Eleanor?" he asked, his voice heavy. "The announcement after Julian's wedding? The partnership offer, when our stock was most vulnerable?" I met his gaze.
"I plan to succeed, Dad.
Everything else was just timing." He sat down heavily, running a hand through his thinning hair. "I don't understand. If you could build all this, why didn't you do it within our company? Why go against your own family?" "Because you never would have let me do it my way," I said, the old hurt rising to the surface. "You wanted me to fit into the box you built, follow the path you laid out. But that's not who I am." He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the floor. "The partnership program, it's quite brilliant, actually," he admitted, a grudging respect in his voice. "That's the idea. And you did all this, built all this, while we were calling you a disappointment?" The question hung in the air, thick with unspoken regret. I felt the old sting, but it no longer had the same power. "Maybe that's why I built it," I said quietly, "to prove that I could." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. The partnership between InnovDesign and Vance and Thorne dominated headlines across the architecture world. Our stock continued its meteoric rise, and traditional firms worldwide clamored to join our program, eager to embrace the future. But the most profound changes were happening closer to home. One morning, as I reviewed quarterly projections in my office, Maya announced an unexpected visitor. My mother. She walked in hesitantly, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. Gone was the usual air of polished superiority, replaced by something that almost looked like humility. "Eleanor," she said, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. "You look very much at home here." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "What brings you here, Mom?" She sat down, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about what I said at Julian's wedding. About all the things I've said over the years." "Have you?" I kept my voice neutral, years of practice hiding the flutter of complex emotions in my chest. "I saw your interview in Archdaily yesterday," she continued. "They called you a visionary, said you're revolutionizing an entire industry."
She paused, swallowing hard.
They're right. I waited, letting the silence stretch between us. For once, I wanted her to do the emotional labor. I didn't understand, she finally admitted, her voice barely audible. I was so focused on preserving what we had, what we knew, that I couldn't see. You were building something extraordinary. She looked up, her eyes pleading. I'm sorry, Eleanor. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with years of unspoken tension. In my 32 years, I'd never heard my mother apologize. Not truly. Do you know what hurt the most? I asked quietly. It wasn't the criticism or the disappointment. It was that you never even tried to understand what I was building. Tears welled in her eyes. I know. I've been watching the videos on InnovDesign's website. The AI platform, the parametric modeling tools, the virtual reality walkthroughs, it's incredible. And I had no idea my own daughter was capable of all this. I was always capable, Mom. You just couldn't see past your own expectations. She nodded, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Your father, he's been different since the partnership started. He talks about you constantly, shows everyone the InnovDesign interface, brags about how his daughter is changing the face of architecture. I couldn't help but smile. The partnership had only been running for a few weeks, and Vance and Thorne's numbers were already up by 40%. Dad had become InnovDesign's most enthusiastic convert, eagerly adopting every new feature we released. And Julian? I asked, curious about my brother's adaptation. Mom actually laughed, a genuine, unguarded laugh. Oh, he's trying so hard to understand it all. Calls the tech support team 20 times a day. He even admitted at dinner last night that he was wrong about all that computer stuff. The thought of my usually arrogant brother humbling himself to learn from my company's support team was admittedly satisfying. Eleanor. Mom leaned forward, her voice serious. I know we can't undo the past, but I'm hoping maybe we can build something new. Something better. I thought about all the family dinners where I'd been dismissed, all the celebrations where my achievements were minimized, all the times I'd driven home fighting back tears of frustration and loneliness. It won't be easy, I said finally. Trust takes time to rebuild. I know, but I'm willing to try. If you are. Just then, Maya buzzed in. Ms. Vance, the Goldman Sachs investors are here for the quarterly review. Mom stood up, straightening her shoulders, a flicker of her old composure returning. You have work to do. But maybe we could have dinner sometime? Just us. I nodded. I'd like that. As she reached the door, she turned back. I'm proud of you, Eleanor, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I should have said that a long time ago. After she left, I sat there for a long moment, letting her words sink in. They were years late, but they still meant something. A crack had appeared in the wall of resentment I'd built, and a fragile tendril of hope was pushing through. The next day, I received an unexpected email from Julian. The subject line read, I get it now, sis. My heart skipped a beat. I opened it cautiously. These past few weeks have been eye-opening, he wrote. The InnovDesign system is incredible. Our project turnaround times have been cut in half, client satisfaction is through the roof, and I finally understand what you've been trying to tell us all these years. I was wrong. We all were. You didn't abandon the family business, you revolutionized it. He went on. I know I've been a terrible brother. All those snide comments, the condescension, the way I lorded my position over you.
I'm ashamed of how I acted.
Would you be willing to grab coffee sometime? I'd like to learn more about what you've built and, maybe, if I'm lucky, start being the kind of brother you deserved all along. I read the email twice, a lump forming in my throat. I remembered the brother who used to defend me from playground bullies, who'd helped me build elaborate Lego cities, before success and family expectations had twisted him into someone else. Maybe that brother was still in there somewhere. That evening, Ampy came by my office, a bottle of champagne tucked under her arm. Wow, she said, settling into her favorite spot on my office couch. I hear there's been quite a shift in the family dynamics. I poured us both a glass. Mom came to apologize. Julian sent an email. Dad's become Innov Design's biggest cheerleader. It's strange. Strange good or strange bad? Strange hopeful. But also a little scary. What if it's all just because of the company's success? Aunt B took a thoughtful sip of her champagne. Does it matter? People change for all sorts of reasons. The important thing is whether that change is genuine. And how do I know if it is?
Time, she said simply.
Time and actions. Words are easy. Let's see what they do with them. She was right, of course. The real test would be in the weeks and months to come, when the initial shock of my success wore off. But something had shifted, not just in my family, but in me. I no longer needed their approval or understanding. I had proven myself beyond any doubt, and that knowledge gave me a freedom I never felt before. The next week, I had dinner with Mom. It was surprisingly pleasant. She asked questions about my work, genuinely listening to the answers. She told me stories about her own early days in architecture, the challenges she'd faced, the insecurities she'd overcome, things she'd never shared before. It was like seeing her for the first time, not just as Mom, but as a woman with her own history and struggles. Julian and I met for coffee, which turned into a 3-hour conversation about technology, innovation, and the missed opportunities to be better siblings. He brought his laptop, eager to share how he was using Innov Design systems to transform his division at Vance and Thorne. He even asked for my advice on some design challenges he was facing, something that would have been unthinkable just a few weeks earlier. And Dad started stopping by my office regularly, not to criticize or question, but to learn, to understand, to bridge the gap between his world and mine. He even started attending some of Innov Design's training sessions, his eyes wide with fascination as he explored the possibilities of virtual reality and AI-assisted design. They were trying. It wasn't perfect. Years of hurt didn't disappear overnight. There were still moments of awkwardness, of misunderstanding. But they were trying. And so was I. One evening, as I worked late in my office, Dad appeared in my doorway. "Got a minute?" I nodded, and he sat down, looking thoughtfully at the city lights twinkling below. "You know," he said quietly, "I always thought I was protecting you, pushing you toward what I knew, what I understood. I never realized I was actually holding you back from something greater." "You taught me a lot, Dad," I said gently. "Just maybe not in the way you intended." He smiled, a genuine, rueful smile. "You taught us more. About innovation, about courage, about being strong enough to forge your own path." He paused, his gaze meeting mine. "I'm sorry we took so long to learn those lessons." Looking at him in that moment, I saw something I'd never seen before. Not the intimidating patriarch who had dismissed my dreams, but a man coming to terms with his own limitations and biases, a man willing to admit he was wrong. Maybe, I thought, that's what real success looks like. Not just proving others wrong, but creating space for everyone to grow. 1 year later, I stood at the podium in the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons Hotel, looking out at a sea of familiar and unfamiliar faces. The occasion, Innov Design's annual leadership conference, where we had just unveiled our latest groundbreaking innovation, a virtual reality platform that would revolutionize architectural visualization and client interaction forever. But this wasn't just any corporate event. In the front row sat my family, all of them. Mom, Dad, Julian, and even Aunt B, now Innov Design's Director of Strategic Investments, her sharp eye and business acumen proving invaluable to our continued growth. A year ago, I began, my voice steady and clear. I sat in a different ballroom, being called a disappointment. A ripple of quiet laughter spread through the crowd. My journey had become something of an industry legend, a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of challenging the status quo. Today, I continued, Innov Design's partnership program includes over 200 traditional architecture firms worldwide. We've increased project delivery speeds by 73%, improved client satisfaction rates by 89%, and, most importantly, helped countless clients realize their dream spaces in ways they never thought possible. I caught my father's eye. He nodded, pride evident in his expression. Not the conditional pride of before, but something deeper, more genuine, more earned. But success isn't just about numbers, I said, my gaze sweeping across the room. It's about growth. About learning to see beyond our own limitations and prejudices. About being brave enough to forge new paths while respecting the wisdom of tradition. The changes in my family over the past year had been nothing short of remarkable. Mom had become one of Inov Design's most enthusiastic advocates, hosting workshops to help older architects embrace our technology. Her transformation from skeptic to champion even featured in Architectural Digest. Julian had thrown himself into mastering every aspect of the Inov design system. His division at Vance and Thorne now had the highest adoption rate of our new features, and he regularly provided valuable feedback for improvements, his insights shaping our software in ways I never could have imagined on my own. More importantly, he had become the supportive brother I had always longed for, defending me fiercely in industry circles and openly crediting me for his own evolution as a leader. And Dad had surprised everyone. After initially struggling with the partnership, he had an epiphany during one of our regular coffee meetings. You know, he admitted, stirring his cappuccino, I always thought I was protecting the Vance and Thorne legacy by resisting change. But you actually saved it, made it stronger, made it ready for the future. Now, as I stood at the podium, announcing Inov Design's latest innovation, I could see the future unfolding before us, not just for our company, but for our family. And so, I concluded, my voice filled with emotion, I'm excited to announce 2 new appointments to Inov Design's board of directors. A hush fell over the room. First, Julian Vance, whose unique perspective on bridging traditional and digital architecture has been invaluable to our growth. Julian stood, accepting the applause with a warm smile and a wink in my direction. And second, Harrison Vance, whose 40 years of industry experience and newfound passion for innovation make him the perfect addition to our leadership team. Dad rose, looking both proud and humbled. The applause was thunderous, heartfelt. The industry loved a good redemption story, and ours was one for the books. Later that evening, as we celebrated in a private dining room overlooking the city, Aunt Bee raised her glass. To the Vances, she said, her voice ringing with warmth, who finally learned that success comes in many forms. Mom squeezed my hand under the table. To Eleanor, she added softly, her eyes shining, who never gave up on any of us, even when we gave up on her. The conversation flowed freely, easily. Dad and Julian debated the potential of virtual reality in historical preservation. Mom shared anecdotes from her tech workshops, her enthusiasm infectious. Aunt Bee plotted our next strategic acquisition, her mind always 3 steps ahead. It felt natural, comfortable.
Right.
As I looked around the table, I remembered another family dinner just over a year ago, where I had been the outcast, the disappointment, the one who didn't fit. The contrast was startling, almost surreal. Penny for your thoughts? Julian asked, sliding into the chair next to me, a mischievous grin on his face. Just thinking about how much has changed, I replied, shaking my head in disbelief. He nodded, his gaze softening. You know what the best change is? Finally having a real relationship with my sister. I missed out on that for too long. We all did, Dad added, joining our conversation, his voice thick with emotion. But that's the past. Today, we're building something new together. And we were. Inov Design's success had opened doors, but it was our willingness to walk through them, to learn, to grow, to forgive, that had truly transformed our family. The next morning, I arrived early at my office to find a small package on my desk. Inside was a framed photo of me at age 7, sitting at our old family computer, a look of intense concentration on my face. A note from Mom was attached. You were always meant to change the world. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. Love, Mom. I placed the photo next to my industry awards, a tangible reminder of where I had started and how far we had all come. My phone buzzed. A group message from Julian. Family dinner at my place this Sunday. I'm testing the new VR platform to show off my cooking skills without actually having to cook. Count me in, Dad replied. but maybe have real food as backup. No faith in technology, Dad? I'm disappointed, Julian joked. I've learned my lesson about underestimating technology, Dad responded, adding a winking emoji, and the people who create it. I smiled, typing my reply. I'll bring dessert. The real kind. Looking out at the San Francisco skyline, bathed in the warm morning light, I felt a deep sense of contentment. Success was sweet, but having a family that finally understood and supported me, that was the real victory. Aunt Bee appeared in my doorway, ready for the board meeting. Your father's already there, rearranging everyone's seats for optimal virtual reality viewing. I laughed. Never thought I'd see the day. Never thought I'd see any of this, she said, gesturing around the office, her eyes filled with pride. But you made it happen. You changed everything. We changed everything. I corrected her, a warmth spreading through my chest. All of us. And that was the truth. My success hadn't just transformed my family, it had given us all a chance to become better versions of ourselves. The disappointment had become a catalyst, the rejection a foundation for something stronger, something more enduring. As I walked into the boardroom, greeted by my father's enthusiastic explanation of virtual property tours and my brother's good-natured tech jokes, I knew that this acceptance, this understanding, this growth, was the greatest innovation of all.